Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Babbling Irons video with myself, Mike, and Sloth. Something a little bit different today. We've been talking a lot about incomings, but it could be another outgoing other than the Declan Rice saga, and it's a pretty unexpected one. Thilo Kehrer. Now, he is someone that has had an up and down time so far at West Ham, to say the least. Came in from PSG, kind of went under the radar for most fans. They didn't know too much about him, but obviously a signing from PSG, people were happy with. But now it's being reported that he, after just one season, he could be set to leave West Ham. With this coming out today, that West Ham have been made aware that Thilo Kehrer could leave this summer, despite only moving at the start of last season. So this was really a surprise to me. It kind of came out of nowhere. I'm not sure who's kind of reporting what side, but if it is Thilo Kehrer wanting the move, do you guys understand that first and foremost? And what is kind of driving this rumor? Because less than 3 weeks ago, he was leading the parade and looked to be loving life.
I think what's leading it is it's no surprise to see, I think, almost every single player signed last season, where we've seen this before, has been linked with a move away. None of the existing squad, bar, I think three. Actually, no, to be fair, no, actually, let's be honest. No, there's been about four different players that have been set, but predominantly at the forefront has been anyone who's been signed, bar Agard, so far looks like they have been linked with a move away. And you could argue one of the main reasons being is those players have at least held a value and can be sold, in which to facilitate cheaper purchases.
Sloth, what do you make of the whole rumor that Thilo Kehrer could be leaving? Because, he came in for around 10.7 million, I think it was last summer. And he's had to kind of move around a lot. There's been a lot of changes to our defense over the whole season with injuries, with the World Cup disruption. He's had to play left back, right centre back. Why would he be looking to leave when we've got European football next season? And would you be looking to leave if you were him? Does he maybe just not see himself as a regular starter next season?
I think the only reason he'd want to leave is probably family related. If his family hasn't settled or if they haven't come over as well and there's an issue there. To be honest, I think when you're a professional footballer, family stuff is kind of nonsensical. You're getting paid thousands and thousands of pounds a week, and you can just as easily travel and see your family way beyond the realms of any other career, really. It's, for me, I think it's nonsense. Obviously I'm not in that position, but it's a cop-out in my opinion if that's the case. But I don't see why you'd want to leave. It's a case of, we've got European football next year, and unless you are someone who is potentially being courted by one of these Saudi clubs with more money than they can poke a dirty stick at as such, then what's the point? It's he's come in, and for the European campaign he's been a big focal point of it. He's clearly well liked at the club, so I don't think it's a case of him not getting on with anyone. I think, quite like Mike said, it's perhaps a disingenuous story that has been put out there by someone perhaps either looking to shift wages or perhaps looking for a tiny slice of profit, because he's a German international, he's got experience, and we have an incredibly aging and injury prone defence. Why would we get rid of anyone in our defence who looks like they could be a core unit and well-liked member?
Well, that's the big thing for me, is that you look at our centre-back options going into next season as it stands. It's Ogbonna, who's probably going to get that. I think he might have got that contract extension. He's 34 years old and got injuries himself. You've then got Zuma, who you cannot trust to play more than 3, 4, 5 matches at a time. You've then got Agard, who's also had his injury problems this season, and hopefully he's got rid of most of them. And then that kind of leaves...
He's also off to AFCON.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing. In January, we're going to be losing a few players. So to me, it makes absolutely no sense to be looking to sell Kehrer. But in terms of his performance this season, it has been up and down. He's made mistakes early on in his career, but he also got quite a lot of praise within his first few matches for being, very good on the ball and a lot more composed than most people thought. What have you guys made of his season? Because towards the end of the year, he had to come in, at right back as well when Kufau was out of the team and had those injury problems as well. He done very well. I mean, look at that Man United game at home. Absolutely pocketed Rashford, who was, one of the most informed wingers in the league at the time. So what have you made of his performance so far, from last season? And do you think that selling him just makes any sense at all?
So, in my eyes, selling him makes no sense. The fact that he's versatile and can play across the back line is something that's very important to have in modern football. He offers a fantastic rotation option, and in actual fact, last year he proved that he's more than capable to be a starter. For instance, we mentioned it when he came on in the Conference League final for Zuma. There was no difference between him or Zuma when he came on. The tail end of last season, he again was fantastic and put in probably some of the best defensive performance that we'd seen from any of our players throughout the duration of our season. And I think even the staunchest of, for lack of a better term, haters of Kehrer would agree to that and would have testified to that. And when you look at it as well, I feel that he was impacted quite a bit in the early part of the season because of the way Moyes likes his teams to play or defend. It's very passive. It's very much about holding shape. It's about not looking to attack the ball and to be proactive defensively. And that goes against everything that is really within Kehrer. So when he feels there was an opportunity, again, the pace of the Premier League probably also took him slightly off guard because, again, whilst League One does have good pace and so on and good physicality, maybe at times that there's just that extra 2 or 3 kind of percent increase in terms of how quickly people do things and the frenetic pace of the Premier League, that his aggressive play within a Moyes structure got exploited and caught out. And I think that's once he started to maybe adapt or start to actually review his own performance and think, actually, I just need to sit in. I just need to kind of dig in and not play my natural game to kind of work within this kind of function, ultimately benefited him. I think that's how I feel when I watch it, that he started to curb his natural instincts and his natural aggressiveness on the pitch to conform to what Moyes wants, which then obviously saw him look far better because, again, he's not necessarily doing something that you need other players to show a level of aggressions and aggression of a set of play. Something that we saw with Issa Diop, why he's always struggled at West Ham, because people will say reckless, but he is a more aggressive, more attacking defender looking to come out and kind of stop. But that only works if you have other aggressive players around you who are looking to either cover those spaces that you leave or to come out with you to limit the space. So
do you think that could be a key reason as to why maybe he is looking to leave if the rumours are true, that it just doesn't suit how he wants to play long term?
I think you could probably point that to a majority of our squad. That there is, I don't want to be too harsh. I don't want to kind of.
Well, no one really wants to have 30% possession and work without the ball a lot of the time, do they?
Yeah, I would think there is a hesitancy from many of the players to continue in the vein that we are in terms of playing, and there may be concerns for them in terms of their overall football development, that they are maybe being underutilized or actually not learning enough new elements to their game. And if, that could also lead you to being slightly disgruntled. And then if you do have things like, I think his girlfriend lives in Germany still, things like that then kind of get exacerbated because football can be quite lonely. If you're not in form, you're not playing well, you're not necessarily enjoying certain aspects of it. If you've then got your kind of comfort blanket as such, or your comforts elsewhere, then you could see why someone may then crave, actually, I need to go back to something comfortable, something that I know, and something that is going to help me to, I guess, progress.
One interesting thing I saw on Twitter and on social media about Thilo Kehrer was maybe a development into a midfield role, similar to what we've seen with, a lot of defenders recently, and trying to play in that inverted kind of role. I think with Kerr, we wouldn't play that system, so he would have to go into a midfield three. Do you think he has the capabilities to do that, Sloth? Maybe a question for you. Do you think just because of his technical ability, he'd be able to, cope with the physical aspect of playing in midfield and, the awareness you would need compared to centre back?
I think he has the capability to do it. It's just a question of why would we risk moving him on? Like I'm going to kind of go back to, people talk about errors in their game and people settling in. Well, if you speak to any Juventus fan about the time that Ogbonna was there, they would say he was incredibly error prone. And, even when he came over at times, he made mistakes. Winston Reid, when he first came in, the first season he was here, made a lot of mistakes. Mm-hmm. And the player he grew into and the player Ogbonna have grown into, they're night and day. So quite why people would ignore the back end form of the season and think, but the first few months that he was here, he really struggled and he was terrible. He made mistakes. And putting aside that is beyond me. I think there's a hell of a player in there if we can get him to keep that up. I think as well, if we were looking to move him to the midfield role, he has got all the ability to do that. It's not necessarily what I think we should be doing, because again, if we look at our defensive options, unless we're going on some sort of mad recruitment drive, what are we going to do?
We're not.
It's exactly, but I'd much rather play Thilo Kehrer right back than Ben Johnson, and then you're looking at either Soufal or Thilo Kehrer.
Well, he's still only 26 years old. Like you mentioned, that first season adapting into the Premier League can be a challenge, and we saw players like Paqueta grow into that role very well. Even Thilo Kehrer towards the end was growing into that, and even you mentioned it, Mike. He came in a final of the Conference League. We just won a penalty. Zoom went off injured, and we did not look any different in the back line. Like, he did very well when he came on. So where would you guys see him as a starter next season? That's the big thing, the big question, because that may be a key aspect as to why he may be looking, just in terms of his personal development. Is he a starter for you next season or not?
I think come the start of the season, the answer is no. I think the idea is come the start of the season, Zuma will remain, and Aged will be essentially heir apparent to Ogbonna, because essentially you have that true balance of a left foot and right footer in defence. That's not to say that won't change, because obviously we've seen again in Aged, he's had mistakes this season. So to have a player at a level where they can come into, say, a final and then not to be any noticeable change at all is a good thing, because that then means that there is pressure on those in the team to continue to perform, because if they do not perform, not only can he come in the centre-back role, he can also come in, say, at right-back. And again, it's a good pressure to have. Soufal, we may decide actually with 2 years left on his contract, we may actually decide that actually we want to initiate a deal there. There's potential that we're looking at moving on Ben Johnson. So again, we may move on Ben Johnson to move Thilo Kehrer out to right back, and look to bring in centre backs. So because of his flexibility, he could very well start the season as our starting right back over Soufal. I don't think it'll be the case, but there's every chance he could do that. There's every chance that he could work his way into being a starting centre-back, especially if we went to a back three. I think 100% he is then a starting centre-back. So there are options, and we're also in full competition. So I don't think that there is necessarily not enough football for him. I think the point is, does he enjoy the football that he is playing?
Yeah.
And does he feel he's being given a fair enough shake of that rotation? Or he's going to get a chance if a player is out of form? I think they're probably the main questions, really, as opposed to, is he a starter? I think he just wants to know that he will have a fair shake, because when you look around everything, he looks like he's a fantastic person to have in your dressing room.
Yeah.
And when he has played in the last part of the season, he's been very comfortable. But again, I would question how many players are truly happy with the football. I think they're happy at the club, happy with being at the club and playing for West Ham and the fans. I would possibly question potentially maybe how much they're enjoying the football that they're playing overall. Not to say that they don't like Moyes or they're against Moyes, but I think there's probably are questions in relation to how much they've actually enjoyed the past season and the football that they've been a part of.
Yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if he left this summer, to be honest. And I think, it did take a lot of people by surprise, this rumor coming out. So I guess we'll have to keep an eye on it and see if anything develops. But yeah, let us know in the comments what you think of Thilo Kehrer and this, latest news that he could potentially be leaving West Ham after just one season at the club. Let us know in the comments what you would do. And yeah, we'll make sure to reply to as many as possible. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel as always. And guys, until next time, come on, you
Irons.